Hey everybody, it's Jen Obermeyer with Pro Organizer Studio. I am so excited that you are here, especially if you are watching this replay. You are in the right place. I am interviewing Jennifer Ford Berry today on our page, and we're going to talk about authoring books. We're going to talk about totally switching directions in your business, among other things that we're going to chat about. So welcome. Welcome to my makeshift broadcasting space today. Okay, I see Jennifer is on, so I'm going to go ahead and invite her on the broadcast while I continue my introduction of her. So in case you ever heard us talk about the masterclass, it used to just be called the masterclass, and now it's called Inspired Organizer. So it's kind of grown up. It has a new name, it has new content, and it has a paid resource group. Okay, Jennifer, I'm going to try to invite you on again here. All right, let's see if I can get her on now.
It's going to work.
Yay! Yay! I told you
I kept switching my phone all different directions.
Sorry about that. There's always one little thing that Facebook changes every time I do this. So hello, welcome.
Hi.
I didn't do a long introduction of you yet because I wanted to make sure that didn't happen. So now I want to introduce Jennifer. I have been a guest on Jennifer's podcast, which is really awesome. She has one called The 29-Minute Mom. And Jennifer has been an organizer for a lot longer than me, and she will tell us all about that story. But Jennifer is the author of several books. In fact, a lot of the girls that were in our Facebook group were like, here's an organizer I really recommend. Like, I love her book. I love this book. I'm like, she's in our group. And they're like, oh my God. So Jennifer is kind of sort of famous in that way, which is really cool. And so I wanted to bring her on to this chat to talk a little bit about what the process is for writing a book and what that does for your business. However, because Jennifer and I already know each other, somewhat more than that, I do definitely want to talk about some other topics today. And if you guys have questions for her or me or whatever comes up, I would like to hopefully kind of go with the flow on that too. So Jennifer, why don't you introduce yourself and a little bit about your business story, and we will listen to you.
Well, thanks for having me, Jen. I'm excited to be here, and it's been a very long journey, but a very exciting one. I have been doing professional organizing for 16 years now. 16 years ago, I got laid off from my job as an advertiser for a radio station because of 9/11. And I had just had my daughter. She was a baby. And first I thought, okay, cool. You can pay me unemployment. I'll stay home and be a stay-at-home mom. But probably about 2 months into that, I decided that I still loved business and I love marketing and I love creating things and using my brain. And I wasn't cut out to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. So I started this little newsletter. I created a website, and it was called Organize This Life. And it was really bad. Really, I did it myself. It didn't, nothing compared to what we want to see today. But I had this little newsletter called Weekly Organizing Tips, and it was free. And I would literally, Jen, just give out a tip every week that people could do. And I realized after a year of doing that what people wanted was simple, straightforward tips, and they wanted me to tell them how to get organized. And they didn't want to read through paragraph after paragraph to figure it out. And it's very similar to how I feel when I hired a financial advisor or I hired a trainer. I don't want to learn all the ins and outs. I don't have time. I just want someone to tell me how to do it. Mm-hmm. And if you're the expert, people are looking to you to just, forget all the fluff, just get to the point. So yeah. I think that's why they like the newsletter. So what was funny is that back up 1 second. Why I became a professional organizer when I had my little layoff time was because I picked up this book called Do What You Love and the Money Will Come. And back then, and you and I have talked about this, I did not know any professional organizers. It wasn't a big industry. Yeah. The two organizers that I really could place names to was Julie Morgenstern and Peter Walsh. And other than that, I didn't know anybody else doing this for a living. So when I was reading that book, I kept trying to talk myself out of starting this business because I thought, how am I going to make money? Yeah, I would love it. I've loved organizing since I was 5 years old, but how am I going to make money? And really, as I got through the book, and I had really been going through a spiritual, look at myself and saying, am I the type of person that wants to do corporate America the rest of my life? Probably not, especially not as a mom. So I kind of decided, going through and answering all these questions, that really my true passion was organizing, and it had always been that way. This is literally how I was born. This is literally how God created me. And this skill that I have isn't something that everybody else has. But at the time, I thought, I didn't know that. This is just the way I was. And it was funny because now I look back and thinking, not every 5-year-old wants to clean their bedroom. Not every 5-year-old asked their grandmother if they could organize her house every time they went there. So I decided to say to myself, you know, this is my skill set. This is my passion. And if I am passionate about it, people are going to see that. And they're probably going to, you know, they might hire me, you know. So I started my business in Charlotte. And what happened is, the funny thing is.
So you were living in Charlotte at the time?
Yeah, I was living in Charlotte at the time. So I had started this business. And then as my daughter started getting a little older, I had this real pull to go home back to New York. And so when I moved back to New York, it was funny because it was kind of like organizing was kind of taking off in Charlotte. But back here in Buffalo, people were like, what's a professional organizer?
Okay.
So it was a little behind the times. And what I decided to do is I decided to go back to corporate America for a little bit so I could get a solid paycheck. And then about a year and a half later, I had baby number 2. And I had 2 miscarriages in between. So when I had him, I really didn't want to miss a moment. So I opened another business. I left my corporate job. And when there was no customers at my business, I would start writing my first book. So I had this shop, right? It was a consignment shop. I had a baby. I had my grandmother with me to help me with the baby. And I had a business going on. But when he was taking a nap and there was no customers, I was writing this book.
Wow.
So there's no excuse not to get it done. If you really have a dream of writing a book, trust me, you can get it done. And what I had used is that weekly organizing tip newsletter. Mm-hmm. I had saved all of that. I didn't know at the time that that was going to be the basis of my first book. So the book was done. And what I did is I self-published it briefly for maybe a year. And I kept track of all of the sales on a spreadsheet. And why, looking back, that was like a super good idea, better than I thought it was at the time, is because when I went to publishers, I had proof that this book would sell. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we can go on and on about the publishing side of it, and so much has changed. But the biggest thing is, I think that still proves to be true, mm-hmm. That any publisher, they're being bombarded by authors every day, and they don't want a huge risk. And so it was less risky for them to see, hey, I have a customer base. I have people that want to buy a book like this. And so that's when the first book ended up, starting. And that, once that first book became published, it gave me a much bigger platform. And then, I got to do my dream. I got to sell that business. People were no longer saying, what exactly do you do for a living? And it took off from there.
That is amazing. Okay, so I have so many questions because on the one hand, it's like this was amazing for your business. And then on the other hand, I'm thinking your personal life, you're still trying to balance like having 2 young children and be the organizer. So, so I want to ask you about both of those things. But first of all, like, how did you, because I know so many people go through this where they're like, I really want to start this business. I mean, now you're saying like 16 years ago, you're trying to convince yourself this is a thing and it's not just the silliest idea in the world. And people are still going through that because it's just not like a well-known accepted thing that people can and will pay money for. So how did you, or what were and I know that like, so much of what you do, like is your spiritual life is a big part of that. So I'm sure that plays into this answer, but how did you, take that leap of faith of, being able to balance, like having, I don't know if you had kids, with, like you said, their grandmother or in preschool or a nanny, and like going out and like making this business happen. Were you doing that really like all on your own? Did you have an assistant from the beginning? Like, tell me like what that was like just in terms of your time.
Yeah, my time, first of all, I will say this, that one of my best, and I didn't know all these things. I'm talking from 16 years of experience. Yeah. Looking back at my younger self with 2 little kids, one of the things I've really realized is that I made the most of my time. I hate wasting time. I'm very efficient with my time. And so I also love a good hustle. So I work my tail off. None of anything you hear from me today came to me easy. I literally work like probably more than I should because I love what I do. And I feel like that's the hugest blessing in the world. I mean, if you have to make a paycheck every single week, you might as well like what you're doing. So that's a blessing, and it totally can happen. So I'm very grateful that I took that leap of faith. But yeah, with babies and toddlers, my husband even was working out of town for 5 years. Oh, wow. And he was gone, he would be gone like 4 days and then he'd be home 8 days. So that was all going on when I was building my business and writing my books. And I just I balanced it. So if, if I needed a babysitter, I would keep it very small, like maybe 2 or 3 days a week. I didn't put my kids in daycare. I had somebody come to my house. Like I said, I brought them to work with me when I had to. And I did what I had to do to make it work. Like I knew that once I started this business, it wasn't going to come easy and I would have to put my nose to the ground and really hustle. And so I kind of just did it all in between. Like I would be with a client and then I'd have to go get my kids and then I'd be writing at night. So it was kind of just like a juggling act. But as long as I put some effort into each part of it every single day, it got done. You can't, I find a lot of times women are always worried about what wasn't done by the end of the day compared to giving themselves credit for what is done. Mm-hmm. And because that to-do list is never going to end until you die. So get over it. Like it's just going to be there. So you do your best that you can every single day. And when it's, when you're done with that, you're like, okay, tomorrow's a new day, as long as you put your best effort in. But it wasn't easy. There was a lot. My days were very, very busy. Very busy.
I can imagine. Okay. So just in terms of like putting books out there, like as a marketing tool. And I don't know if you want to speak to how you said when you first put out a website that it was just bad, or it was what it was. Yeah. Did you kind of like evolve the website at the same time as, your books became more popular? And like, did you think that helped your business overall, or like, what do you really like attribute some of the growth to?
Well, I've changed my website. I've changed my logo. I've lost track how many times. I'm going to change it again this year because I'm going to go in a different direction. So, yeah, it's totally evolved. So has marketing. So has social media. So has these tools that we have. I used to make my websites with front pages. And now we have, Wix and things that are just move it around with a click of a button. I was doing coding. So it was just a nightmare. But it's totally evolved. And the thing is, it's like you asked if I had an assistant. I didn't have an assistant because I wanted to keep all the proceeds. And, I didn't have an assistant for maybe into the 3rd book. And even then I had several different assistants because I would hire people that would be gung-ho to work for me. And I would notice that they didn't have as strong of a work ethic as I have myself, or I would like them to have. So, and then it would just be like, okay, by the time I'm holding your hand all day long, I could have done it myself. I mean, honestly. Yeah. So it's been really hard as far as assistants go, and virtual assistants and things like that. So you got to be careful with that. And, it's just the book, the book thing and the organizing business are literally like 2 separate businesses. Okay. They're the same theme. They're the same information. And, one gives me a platform. Sometimes I get speaking engagements from the organizing side, and sometimes I get organizing jobs from the book side. So, but if you want to get into writing books, just tell yourself right now, you're going into another business. It's not the same. It's completely different.
So talk to us more about that then. Talk to us about like what the reality is versus what we think it might be right now.
Whatever hours you're putting into your full-time organizing business, you're going to put into that book. Because it's all like when I first started out, and, it's funny because Peter Walsh ended up talking to me when I wrote my first book. And he's like, don't ever write a book for the money. Write a book because you have something to say that you want the world to know. And like, don't even have it in your head how much money you're going to make or how many books you're going to sell. You have to do it from your heart because you want your message to be out there in the world. Like that's the real reason to write a book. So you're going to put your heart and soul into it. And then you're either going to let it just do whatever it does and be okay with that, or you're going to pound the pavement with marketing and promoting, because especially now, you have to be your own publicist, your own marketing person, your own everything, because the publishers from when I started to now do way less. Okay. Like way less. So, but Peter was right. That first book was on fire because I had a story to tell. I had a message to tell, and I really felt passionate about it. And, it started out that they were doing a lot of promotions behind the scenes. But again, this is important to know. Even if you go with a traditional publisher, you only get really 1 year of marketing. After that, you're on your own. I mean, they'll still put it in Barnes & Noble. Our bookstores are going away pretty much anyways. But when I started, there's a lot of stores and a lot of outlets. They'll do that for you, and that's a perk. But you are going to be pushing your books all the time. It's a tremendous amount of work. Tremendous. Yeah. Unless you just want to put it up on Amazon, and let it ride. Depends what you're looking for. So, anything you want to do well, you have to put your heart and soul into it, and you have to work probably double of what you had in mind.
Okay. So just in terms of, you said you moved to New York and people up there were not really educated on what the industry was even about. Do you feel like once you wrote that book that it just gave you a credibility that people said, okay, I believe that she can do what she says she can do? Or did it at least like help explain to them like what the possibilities were of using a professional organizer? So the long answer, or the short version of that question is, did it help you get more clients, but also did it help you get clients that really understood what you were about?
Absolutely, because first of all, it gave me a platform. So people will start, it went from nothing to crazy because I was on radio shows all the time. I was being interviewed by bloggers. People were putting me in magazines without me even reaching out. They were calling saying, hey, do you want to be in Better Homes and Garden? Do you want to be, in organizing magazines? So it's just kind of funny how just putting a book out into the world gives you like this expert status when really it kind of makes me laugh because we're always evolving. Yeah. So, it gave me a lot of business. It gave me a lot of cool opportunities. And, it made me money. So it was a bonus all the way around. It definitely will tell people what you're more about. I've had people that said, oh, I can't believe that you're in my house and I'm hiring you because I had your book, 6 years ago. But then on the other hand, there's people that don't even know I wrote a book and I'm in their house organizing. Yeah. So it just depends, I think that it gives you also, when you're writing your thoughts down, you're doing like a lot of research and you're getting really straight in your mind how you organize. And so that kind of helps yourself when you're out in the field too. It's hours and hours and days. And it's like, basically if you sign, you have 1 year to write your book. So, you're going to be doing a lot of work in a year. And I think it really gets your thoughts straight of how you want to say the message. So that's just going to relay into how you speak it to a client too. Yeah. But by all means, it definitely helps your business.
So do you have any tips, and then we can move on to some other topics I know we want to talk about. Do you have any tips, like I know you've been in our industry for a while, but also you said you've seen the book publishing industry change a lot. So what advice would you give to someone now who wanted to put that out there as part of their building their empire and building that expert status kind of thing? Like if that was truly their goal, like what would you recommend to them?
I think I would honestly do it exactly how I did it, knowing what I know now. I would self-publish briefly. I would keep track. I would prove, and the thing now is you would have a mailing list and people would say, hey, I love this part about your book, or hey, I hate this part about your book. And you could get feedback. If you have a blog, you can write your blog posts every day based on your book and kill, 2 birds with 1 stone. You can multitask that way. You can speak your chapter you wrote last week into your podcast. I mean, you can be getting your name out there and making money now while you're writing a book behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. I would self-publish. I would show that I was credible. I would go to publishers and I would lock one in. Not because it's the best and only way, and we can get more into my story in a minute, but because there's no faster way to get your name out around the world than to go with a publisher, because you as an individual do not have the resources that these publishers have in place. I mean, bookstores are basically waiting. Amazon's basically waiting, saying, here, give me the next book. And that's all over the world. So me peddling my books around when I first started, like I did, had there was no comparison to handing it over to a publisher.
Move on to the next topic, which is what is next in Jennifer's life and world? Because I know I'm always saying to people, the cool thing about having an organizing business is that it can change forms and you can take it with you no matter where you go. So I think that, your story of how it has evolved through the years is so fitting for that. But also, like, will you just tell us about like what your next new ideas are and where you want to take it and what you want to do with it and how you see it evolving for you?
Sure. So basically, one thing I wanted to mention earlier is that if you're an entrepreneur, I think it's the best way to look at your business is like a stool. So it's not just one leg, or it's not going to be balanced. So what I have done is I've created different pockets of income and different streams of income so that you can ride out the ebb and flow of your business. And it's funny because throughout the year, you know, I have other businesses. So I might be more focused on this business because of the season. And then I come back to, you know, this or that, or maybe I'm really focused on a book and I have to tell my clients, like, you know, I can only take a few a week or whatever the case may be. So and that keeps it interesting, honestly. I'm a person that likes change. So I get bored if everything's the same all the time. I don't know if that's every organizer. Maybe it is, but totally.
It's definitely me. I get bored very easily.
Yeah. And I like to create new ideas and I like to create new challenges. So it's interesting though, because, you know, I think after years and years of doing this, I've realized that just being true to myself is the key, not trying to be like somebody else. So if you're starting your business, don't even worry about like what all of us other organizers are, you know, how we're branding ourselves and what our message is, because you have to, if you're not true to yourself and you're not going with your unique skill set and how you relate to people, then it's not going to work anyways. People are going to see right through that. And you also have to know what's driving you, and it can't be the money. It has to be like an inner reason why you're organizing. And for me, it's very clear that why I do what I do is because I want everybody in the world to stop having a death grip on things. And I want to go against the grain of what marketing and society is telling us that we have to accumulate and gather. And I want them to be so free that they, you know, they can go out and do their own passion and live their own purpose, because there's nothing better. I can tell you that, like I said, I work a lot and I work like a dog, but I love it. Everything I've created, I love working at it because I know my why. And so that's the motivation. If you're just making yourself do this business because you think you should, you'll never last. It has to be an inner drive. And so for me, like I said, it's for people to free up. So when I go in and work with a client and their house is a disaster and they're like, I don't even know where to start, I'm overwhelmed. My excitement comes from, I want to know what their vision for their life is, not just for their kitchen. Like if you had less things, because every single thing we own takes up space, time, energy, and money. I call it STEM. Everything. So you have to be very particular of what you're allowing in your space, because you're giving up those things, what you're allowing in your life. It's going to take away those resources that I could be using to make an impact on the world. And so that's what excites me, when they start going after the job they want to do, when they start losing weight, when they start getting out of debt, when they find love. All those things are because the clutter has now been moved out of the way. And
I agree.
That's the most motivating part. So what's next for me is really being bold about my spirituality when it comes to getting organized and really learning how to organize God's way. Because if you look through the Bible, everything was written down for us. I mean, he spelled it out, and we're trying to make up all these new fancy words and fancy slogans and fancy systems when it's really all there. So for me, I want to be bold about that. And I want my message to be that, you know, your life is about living, not about things. And nobody's going to remember you for how many pairs of shoes you owned. Nobody's going to remember you for, you know, how many square feet your house was. They're going to know you for how you made an impact on their life. And if you're constantly shoveling clutter around, you're never going to get there. So if you're passionate about being an organizer, I say go for it and figure out what is your why and what's your spin on it, because you're going to need that to connect with people. So I have a lot of things in the work, but you'll see that kind of branding coming from me from here on out. I'm going to tell you guys that those years and years of having that publisher, as my brand evolved in a spiritual way, they really tried to keep it quiet, because when a book is sold all over the world, you know, you may offend somebody with Christianity. And so a lot of times they would say, well, why don't you not put so many of those Christian words in your books? Or let's take that scripture out. Or even the last book, Think and Live Clutter Free, that was supposed to be organized now, your body, mind, and spirit. And they took out the word spirit. So I felt like I started getting, somebody else was running the show, and that didn't feel good. So I have recently parted ways with my publisher, and I'm now just for the first time in 11 years in charge of how my books are distributed, where they're going, and what they say. And not to say that if you pick up one of my books, it wasn't me at all, but I want it to be 100% me. And, I can't be the organizer for everybody. I can only be the way I want to be. So that's what I'm focusing on this year. We've also talked how I really want to start a conference. I don't know, it'll be 2018. If it's not 2018, it's going to be 2019. Just to bring more organizers together. organizers that want to look at organizing as a lifestyle, people that want to apply organizing as a lifestyle, because we're really living in this, time where Pinterest and shows on TV are making it seem like if you're not, organizing is all about getting your home perfect. And it's not that at all. I mean, it's not even just about how you, put your shoes on a shelf in your closet. It's the whole entire lifestyle. So I think that's really exciting.
It is, because you are definitely not alone. I mean, and I know you're not alone. I know that you're not alone in being an organizer who sees the connection of, whether you call it your spiritual life or your mental energy or whatever it is, like in your heart and soul, that there is a for sure connection between your stuff and like what is going on with you. And, again, whatever, I know you have specific words that you want to use to describe that, but like, I know that a lot of the other organizers out there feel that. And so I think that people who, I don't know if you've noticed, or maybe you can tell us what you've noticed. Like when people first come to you, do they say, I have a stuff problem, but it's more than just that? Like, do they know that, or they come to see that through your work together, that it's not just about like the stuff that you're moving around? You know what I mean? I feel like people must know that on some level, that it's not just.
I think it's funny. I think it's like half and half. Some people do get it, and then the other ones don't get it at all. And it's like, day one, and you're thinking, oh boy, I have a lot of work to do here. Like, I don't even know if they're ready for my message, because we're gonna go way deeper than this closet. And and I know that before I go in. I can see the potential in people. I can see the potential in space. So I already have in my head where I want them to go. I just got to get them on the bus with me. And that's sometimes pretty interesting, because you don't know if they're going to want to do it. But I've had I've had clients where I feel like I'm never going to get through to them, but there's this part of me that feels like I wouldn't be there if I'm not meant to get through to them. So, and sometimes the ones that are the most lost are the most rewarding. So if you're just, there's going to be your clients that you get and it's just a joy, like easy house. They'll let you do whatever. You can buy, whatever you need, and they're just so happy you're there. And then there's the other ones that everything you do, they're going to question you. And after a while, you're like, are you the expert or am I? It's going to be both. And I used to try to avoid that second client, because I was young and I was, not as confident as in my ability to help them. But now it's like, whoever God gives me this week as a new client, I'll take it and run with it, because that's, I'm not there to just make their house look perfect. I'm there to get them to the next level. And sometimes that takes several sweeps with the stuff, I call it sweeps. I'll know when I'm talking to someone, I'll think to myself, it's going to be 3 sweeps before this girl gets it, or this one's going to get it the first time, because they're just like, I give it up. I don't know what else to do. Help me. Yeah. And I usually always ask people, how willing and ready are you for a change? Like a serious, deep lifestyle change. And I want that answer, because then it will tell me, how it's going to go. That is a great question. That is a great question, I guess, to start with and help you filter like where you need to steer each person. Yeah, absolutely. And, and sometimes they don't even know. They just know that they can't live the way they've been living. And the thing is too, this is like a morbid statement, but I use it all the time. I was even speaking at a church Sunday, and it was a pretty liberal older group, which is the toughest group to get to, because they've had, parents from the Great Depression era, and that's a whole nother story in psychology. And I have to stand there and say, you came in the world empty-handed for a reason, and we're leaving empty-handed for a reason. And that really shakes some people up sometimes, but we know it, but we don't stop and think about it, and we just keep going through the motions. It's like, no, we have one chance to get it right. And, I think also people don't even realize how good advertising and marketing is to make you think that you need something. So you have to be pretty intentional about fighting against those messages. I mean, I was in advertising. I know how to do that. So you're trained to do it. That's a good point. And you have to, it's just like with my clients, they're always like, well, what can I go and buy before you get here? Like, what should I get? They're so ready to spend. And every single time my answer is exactly the same. 0, nothing, nada. Do not bring another thing into your house. We're not even remotely close to that answer yet. So I think that's just the funny part about it, is that people want to get organized with organizing products. And it's like, that might not even be the best product for you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I definitely see that is like a whole nother topic, I feel like.
Well, I will tell you this, Jen. I don't know if I told you this story before, but this is a really perfect story of that point. One night I used to play volleyball every Monday night. So my husband was flicking through the channels while I was at volleyball, and he cracked up because he was going through, and there was this episode of Hoarders, and they were showing this lady buying my book, and it was like great publicity. Like, she's going into Books A Million, she's going through the shelves, and she picks up the book, and she's like holding it, and they're just filming it, and it's like, you know, you're like 10 seconds, 20 seconds. Okay, how long will they show? This will be awesome. And then she goes home, and you know what she was hoarding? She was hoarding containers and books. Now, you know, she never read my book.
Right.
They showed her living room. Every single thing she owned was stacked from floor to ceiling in clear, see-through plastic containers. You know, like the right organizing product, but she wasn't getting rid of anything. So she was grabbing all of this stuff. So she had a collection of things in containers and a collection of books. So it just goes to show you, like, buying an organizing book isn't going to get you organizing, and buying organizing products isn't going to get you organized. So it's just, it was funny.
That is hilarious. Well, hilarious, but also so sad. I mean, it's, you know, it's like, yeah, I know this is like a whole nother, like I said, it's like a whole nother topic about like why things are the way that they are. But it's like, I feel grateful that, like you said, God made some people like us, and that we can be matched up with people who really, really need us, and that it can be like a fulfilling career. So that's definitely like a blessing in all of it.
Yeah.
That is really exciting. And you'll definitely have to keep us posted on what and where you end up doing this or bringing people together.
Right now I'm looking at Charlotte. So I wanted to do it this June, but I have just finished up a big event I had last week, and then I have another event this weekend, and I just think I could pull it off, but I really want to make sure I have enough time to make it really, really good. So it probably is going to get pushed back. But I'm excited because I think, you know, I'm in another industry, and when we do our conferences, it gives us all of a bond, and it helps like during the year, because, you know, it's not like we're a teacher and we know all these other teachers that we can go to with our questions. We're pretty much, you know, a unique group. So that, just like you have with your group, you know, it's just, people need that. And especially if they're starting out, they don't want to pay the price that NAPO charges for a conference. You can go, you know, still get together, meet up, get ideas, get support. You don't have to spend, you know, $2,000. So I'm excited to do it. I just, you know, I definitely will let everybody know when I'm ready.
That sounds awesome. What is your, I know you've touched on this some already, so it's not like we haven't talked about it, but when it comes to you being able to do all the things and work as hard as you do, I know a big part of it is having that really strong why, which I completely hear you. I completely agree with, but like also, what are the things that are most important to you in terms of like self-care so that you don't burn out either physically or emotionally on the many things that like you have your hands in?
Oh, I call it fuel. And, you know, everybody's different. I will just go ahead and tell you, like, my fuel. So my fuel is, you know, a morning with God. It's constant worship music in my car. It's podcasts if I'm working alone, when, you know, a lot of my clients aren't even with me anymore, you know, when I get started. So I'm very, very particular of what I let in my brain, in my ears, and in front of my eyes. And you know, as far as my body goes, I get the same amount of sleep every night. I drink nothing but water after my coffee all day. And I'm huge into holistic living. So, you know, I feel like I wouldn't have the energy. And I know as my holistic approach gets stronger and stronger over like maybe the last 5 years, that is giving, you know, because I'm getting older. And the thing is, I also wonder, you know, physically with this job, first of all, I mean, how many days do you go to work and you're like, I just worked out at work because it's so physical, but I don't want to quit anytime soon. I mean, I can't imagine not doing this. And so I feel like it's important for us as organizers to take care of our bodies and have that energy, because if you start out your day and you're drinking coffee and next thing you know, you're grabbing pop, it's like your energy is going to tank by 2 o'clock when your day is not over. So I think it's really important as far as, you know, making sure you have those veggies, those fruits on hand, because you usually don't sit down. I know I don't, and take like an hour lunch break. It's never going to happen. It's be nice, but I'm just not that person. I want to like get through my day. So I always have things that I'm grabbing so that I don't wait till the end of the day and go home and I'm starving and I'm just throwing whatever into my mouth. I read a lot. I love reading. And I, you know, also just like to do things just to have fun. Like I always, you know, if you're an organizer, you like to plan. So I'm definitely the planner in my friend group. I'm the planner of vacations in my home. I love traveling. I love doing anything that's an experience. Like I don't care about things, but I do care about relationships and experiences. And I always laugh and say, like, you can come in my house right now, and if you wanted something, I'd give it to you, because I'm really not attached to anything, but I'm super attached to people, and I love experiences. So it's like, I'll get rid of stuff, but I like to keep everybody in my life all the time. So it's a funny, interesting way of looking at things. But yeah, I don't, as far as the stuff goes, I could care less, except for my books. That's like my one weakness. I feel like I always have a new book I have to order on Amazon.
Yeah. That's that. Okay, those were all such good answers. Thank you so much. All right, Carol has a question, and Carol is in the UK, so she's just starting out. Just to give you a little bit of background, she said she's struggling to get her demographic group, I guess, kind of targeted or kind of figure out who she's really serving. And she said, I wonder if you have any advice on how to do that. How did you find like your first key clients?
Okay, so I can see her question. You broke up a little bit, but so you're asking me, how did I find my first key clients? In the beginning?
Yeah, I think she's kind of talking about like narrowing down her demographic, like, and who she's really wanting to target.
So for me, I know that my favorite client is the overwhelmed mom. Like that's just what I love working with. It's my favorite person. So I'm always going to do whatever I'm doing is going to be geared 90% towards women and moms. And I mean, I definitely have male clients and businessmen and stuff, but it's not as fulfilling to me to go in and do like an office as it is to help a mom feel less overwhelmed in her life. So I definitely know that I narrow in on moms and I narrow in on women. And the thing is like, that's what I'm saying about the stool. So the podcast, you know, gets my brand out and gets my message out and brings clients in. Speaking does. You know, book signings are great, but unless I'm going to speak, it's kind of like, why am I here? Because you've got to interact with the crowd. So if you do get into books, you want to make sure that you can speak as much as possible and then do a book signing. And then I also own a huge family consignment event because I love being able to offer my clients a chance to sell their stuff. And I have what we call as mommy reps that come in, pick up the stuff for my clients and sell for them. So that is all mom oriented, and that generates, you know, business back and forth too. So you really can do, I think as an organizer, you most likely, maybe I'm just assuming that you're organized with your time, but you're also could be really good at organizing events. So I think, you know, I've done workshops and that generates business, but they're all kind of seam together to the same target audience. And so that way it kind of is like, no matter what I'm doing, it benefits the other legs on the stool. It's kind of how I approach my businesses.
Yes, I think that's really good advice. Carol, I hope that is helpful. And Carol, too, I think that if this is part of your question, I'm not sure if it is, but maybe even just figuring out like what that initial niche is going to be, I think is really about who you can most relate with, because I think that's like just a really important part of being able to be great as an organizer, because obviously, Jennifer, you know what it is like to be an overwhelmed mom. So the answers you give are, you know, really from the heart and really practical. So
yeah. And I mean, I feel like
everybody out there,
you have to connect with people. So if you're brand new and you're just starting out, if I were you, I would get out in every way I could give my service as possible. Like even when you're not getting paid, like when I wanted to start speaking, sometimes I was doing it for free. If I knew it was a great opportunity, or I didn't care how many people I was speaking to. I just wanted to connect with people and I just wanted to get my message out. And that's where things really start to take off, is because when you give from your heart, like you're saying, Jen, people see that and then they want more of it. So that's why it's really so important to just be yourself and just do it because you want to help people's lives become better, not because you're worried about how many new clients you have this month. I mean, the numbers, sometimes you have to throw them out the window.
Yeah. Oh, that's definitely helpful. Sarah does have a question. Okay, she says, what? Okay, she said, what type of approach should you have as far as launching your business being in a big city versus smaller towns where I've seen people have a lot of success? And I find that question hilarious because I am not in a big city. I'm in a very medium city, and I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, if I was in a big city, it would be like I would have zero problems. So, Jennifer, I know when you started, you're in Charlotte, but where you live now, I mean, are you really?
Most of my business is in Buffalo, which is on the
okay.
Border of Canada.
Yeah.
And but where I live is in a smaller town. But most of my clientele are in Buffalo, so a bigger city. Okay. However, I think it can be beneficial in a small town because you already have connections. I mean, you think about it. I remember when my first book came out, one of my first book signings was at my local library. And like my favorite teacher came to my book signing and told me that when I was a freshman in high school, I was good at writing. Like, who even knew? But I was more excited that my teacher came, at that book signing than all the other book signings I've been to.
Okay, great. So again, thank you guys so much for joining us. Jennifer has so many amazing tips because she has done not just organizing, but like she was saying, having multiple types of platforms to support her organizing business through the years. So I think that, really going back and taking in everything that you said would be so valuable, especially to people who are starting out and thinking, how am I going to sustain a business doing solely the one-on-one physical client work? And freaking out about that because of either the number of clients or the amount of like physicality that's involved with it. So thank you so much for sharing all those other ideas, because I think it is important, in terms of long-term strategy, to come up with things that you still enjoy doing that support your core business, but that are also helping you just get visibility and helping you, grow your expertise in the world. So thank you so much for everything that you shared that is a part of that.
Absolutely. I think, the cool thing about this profession is, like you said early in the beginning, you can take it anywhere you want. So that, and that's something that is really unique to the business. And obviously, like for me, I'm planning on starting my business in Florida soon because I know I want to end up back in Florida. So, all you need is a client base. You don't need hundreds and hundreds of clients. So no matter what town you live in, big or small, focus on a small number and grow, because, what do they say? Like 80% of your income comes from 20% of your clientele, something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's true for me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all that. It's so valuable for people who are starting out or somewhere in the middle of just growing and trying to figure out like what their next thing is, because you can still have a next thing even once you've decided to do this. I think that's such an important message to have. Okay, so thank you so much. And if people want to learn more about you, they can go to your website, or they can also listen to your podcast because you have so many great tips and stuff. I know your podcast is the 29-Minute Mom. And then your website is it jenniferfordberry.com?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure. jenniferfordberry.com.
It's easy to remember. And then I'm on Facebook under author organizer Jennifer Ford Berry. So, and then Instagram is Organize Now, which is the name of the books.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you all for being here today. And thank you so much, Jennifer, for doing this. It was so fun. And thanks for sticking with us through the technical hiccups, everybody.
Thanks for having me, Jen.
Okay. Talk to you soon, girl.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.